Hi, hello, namaste, and this is Momita Gokhale, your transformation coach. Thank you again for your encouragement on the last episode. And today I am here with my eighth episode of the podcast series, Rendezvous, the Transformation Story. Today I have a transformation specialist. It's Preeti Khare, who is an internationally certified transformational relationship coach. She is a keynote speaker, mentor, trainer, and a pre-marital and post-marital coach, an ICF, PCC, and MBA, MS in HR from USA. Preeti is the state president of WICCI Coaching Council, Madhya Pradesh. As a relationship coach, she works with individuals and couples to build, sustain, and repair their relationships. And she's also involved with corporates and PSUs in the areas of interpersonal relationship, development, team building, conflict management, etc. It's a pleasure to get her on my show because Preeti herself has done diverse professions, diverse experiments with her own self. So let's tune in right now and listen to what Preeti has to share on transformation through her personal transformational stories. Hey Preeti, how are you doing?
I am doing very well, Momita. How are you?
I'm doing good and I'm excited to have this conversation with you. So,
Thank you.
so Preeti, you have been a part and you have been encouraging me on my podcast journey too. And you know the topic is transformation. So, when was the first time you came across transformation?
Um, Momita, first of all, I want to thank you for being. I'm just seeing, and I'm so amazed to see the kind of guests that you're inviting on your podcast. And the list of speakers is just so amazing. So I'm so humbled, first of all, to be on this podcast with you today. And to answer your question, I have to tell you that I have witnessed transformation very closely, Momita, very early on in my life. When I was a kid, my dad, I lost him to a cardiac arrest when I was like 11. And I saw my mom working very hard and transforming from a home baker to a successful businesswoman. And she was a big source of information in how I embraced our transformation today. But I'm sure your listeners would be interested in knowing how and when I really came across the transformation in my own life. So I will take you back in time to year 2004. Yeah, when I moved to the US with my husband and a 9-month-old son, we were in Columbus, Ohio, and for more than 5 years, and my husband was doing his PhD, and I was on a dependent visa, and I had no work, so I started to volunteer in an organization, and I used to teach ESL, English as a secondary language, with other 60 American women to the set of women who would migrate to the US, and we would familiarize them with English as a language and also with the custom and the culture of the US. So that's what I was doing all those 5 years. And then I had another baby in between. And then once, we were ready to kind of get a job and he was ready after his PhD, there was a slump in the US and that is 2009, right? And our first job came along in Dubai, in the Middle East. And then from there, we moved to the Middle East, where again, I was very excited that now I will be, allowed to work and all of that. And the moment I started to work, right after we landed, I found a good job and started to work. And sooner I realized that my children are not getting acclimatized to the weather conditions of of Dubai, a lot of dust and everything. And then I started, gave up the job that I was in of a teacher. And then again, sat at home and for some time and started my own entrepreneurship journey. It was it was called Pretty Creations. And what I learned in the US as a hobby, jewelry making, came along as the whole entrepreneurship stint for me. So that's what I did for about 5 years and taught French to kids, I was tutoring kids. And so this is what I did. And by the time again, we were ready to come back to India because that's what my husband wanted to do, wanted to come back to India, stay with his parents and all of that. We again got an offer from the same university in the US, and we went back to Columbus, Ohio. And this time I went with an intention and with a clear goal in my mind, which was like I would study in the US and I would work in corporate America and stuff like that. So I did go, I wrote my GRE, TOEFL, everything, and then went to Central Michigan University, did my MSA, Masters in Administration, and then worked for the giants like Wendy's, Victoria's Secret, American Red Cross, and worked with corporate America. So if you look at all of this, Momita, so pretty much around 2004 onwards, there was a continuous self-transformation, which was not about changing myself, but it was more about shifting myself to a completely new dimension of experience and perception. Yeah. But what we really call inner transformation, that happened to me only after I relocated in India to India in about 2017, after 14 years of life abroad. So
wonderful. I mean, Preeti, I could have just heard the story, and thank you so much for sharing your personal story. And I was wondering, I mean, what was I'm rather wondering, and now I'm very, very curious at this point, is what was it that was pushing you to do this many changes? Because I understand the environment, and you kind of immediately changed gears, while English there, then, a corporate job in Dubai, then French tutoring, then taking care of children, all this put together, and then a degree, a professional degree, and then working with such big time. So, and you mentioned a very powerful word here, inner transformation, that happened when you came back to India. So what was that? Because most of my listeners, and when we are into coaching sessions ourselves, we are not aware of what triggers this. So what was that was, pushing Preeti to do something more, something different?
So such a beautiful question, Momita. So what I did up till now, up till 2017, was the circumstances and what I could do in those circumstances and finding the best. And that is why I'm saying that it was more of an external transformation, taking more of education, getting more experience, becoming more wiser, and having, becoming a better self when it comes to what I could achieve. But when we talk about inner transformation, we talk about not the shift outside of us or what people can see, but a shift inside of us. And that trigger that you're talking about. So when I came to India, and as I mentioned, for my in-laws, and we settled in Bhopal where they stayed, I had not only lost my job, Momita, it was my freedom, my ability to drive, and 14 years of staying and living at my terms, and really, doing things what were best coming to me. Now, when I came to Bhopal, it is a tier 2 city, and then staying with my in-laws, which is a very conservative family, if I have to admit it here. And, it wasn't easy for me. To top it up, my kids were in a major cultural shock. It was the first time for them. So there was a lot of turbulence happening in my personal life. And when I needed the support, otherwise, my husband is very supportive. All this that I told you, the career, the education, everything he supported. He's a very supportive person otherwise. But, sometimes when you need the support the most, you don't seem to find it. So I think the time that I needed the emotional support the most, I didn't find it with anybody. And there were a lot of challenges on the personal side. And that's what took me to that. So when I came to India, again, Martha, I took up a job as a freelancer, looking at the circumstances. My family has always been the most important thing for me, So I always chose jobs, whether I was in America, Dubai, or thing, that will be 7 to 4 kind of a thing. And at 4, I will come back and be with my children so that they are in front of me and I know what is happening, and also to be with them emotionally and mentally, right? Psychologically. So that's what I negotiated in this job also when I came back to India in an OD consultant's job. It was a freelancer's thing, and I would go and come back. The remaining time after 4 would completely go in immersing myself with self-help books, personality development talks, TEDx talks, all of those things, and as many meditation groups that I could join, you know, to find some mental peace, some solace there. And around the same time, then I stumped over coaching, which was again a new journey started for me, like ACC and PCC. And by then, you would understand, I was very clear with the niche in my head, Vomita. Two things. I think one, having traveled various countries and understanding that happiness is the core for human species, right? And relationships lie at the center of it. So if your relationships are not sorted, no matter how much you have and what you have doesn't matter, right, around you. So I knew that my niche is going to be in relationships, and I'm going to be working in this area. So I think the trigger was my internal and personal life at that point in time, and I kind of took the resort of coaching and other personal development tools that I found to kind of settle down to this wherever I am now.
Yeah. So, Preeti, again, so candid, Preeti. I mean, I guess any women listeners today, I'm sure they can connect, as to the transition that happens when we are with some other family, where we go and how we adapt ourselves. So, while you have done so much and you have looked and you found your calling, coaching and relationships putting together, what are some of the blind spots that you think, one needs to be aware during this journey of transformation?
So the blind spot I would take here as two C's. One is complacency. So all of us, we begin to be on this transformation journey and then feel that, okay, we have done this much, we have arrived here, and then we feel complacent about it, that, okay, we have done this and I think we have transformed or things like that. So complacency is one. And as you rightly said, Momita, that it is a journey, right? And it is not a destination. And at any point in this journey, if we, come across this complacency, then it is, we have not arrived there, period, first of all. The second thing is that competition with others. The second C is competition. So people have their own journeys. We won't benefit from competing with anyone in this relay of life, right? Everyone's starting point is different. And so their finish line is going to look very different. So if we begin to compete where others are, then we have missed that bus. So if we can just focus on our own starting point and our own unique journey, we'll be surprised to see our external and internal both transformations.
Wonderful. I was talking to my last guest, and one of the topics he said that you need to stop that stagnancy. And when you said complacency, we get so used to being that, oh, I've arrived, and the entire journey, the internalization just stops. And very nicely you put across competition where each one of us are today. And that also I think aligned, and we have spoken on this, that transformation is more internal. So when it's internal, there's no competition. You are just making a better version of yourself. Awesome. Right. Awesome, Preeti. I think that clarity of thought is something that I'm really enjoying. Having spoken about transformation, and you have been all self-driven, but in your experience as a coach and, coming across different people, do you also see that transformation can be forced?
Well, transformation, Momita, I think something that is forced, I call it a change. It is a change and not transformation, because anything that is being forced upon you is going to be only temporary. You need to have that inner drive to shift your being, to become something more than what you are today. That drive cannot be forced. It has to be very intrinsic. And transformation happens, I believe very strongly, Mamita, it happens when either of the two happens. So one is either you have gone through some physical, emotional, mental pain, which kind of takes you towards this transformation and begins to help you think that life has a bigger purpose for you. Or the second way the transformation happens is that when you are so inspired by people around you, or people just reading books or being inspired by, fellow beings on earth and saying that, my goodness, this is what I should be, eyeing to become or aspiring to become, is when transformation happens. So, yes, to answer your question, it cannot be forced. If it is forced, it's going to be a change. For transformation to happen, there has to be the intrinsic drive, which can come from either of the two, as I said.
Yeah. It makes
Yeah.
sense because change is something which, again, you can fall back. And that's what
Yeah.
perhaps, people try to bring about maybe a habitual change, and it does not long term, it is short term. But transformation is
Yes.
something which is like you just change, and that's a part of
Yeah.
you. Yeah. And that's
Yes.
the
Yes.
word intrinsic. Uh,
Right.
you did mention about your personal story in terms of how your family has been supportive, how you mentioned your husband, which is very important for us to go ahead, our partners, our family. How
Yeah.
do you think you have transformed today, and you're smiling and you're talking and sharing your story so proudly? But what do you think is the role that the environment needs to play, or how do they get impacted when one is going through transformation?
Yeah. Beautiful. Hmm. I would say, Momita, that it gets far more easier and harmonious if we take the support of our family, and because otherwise it can be quite challenging if you're trying without support, right? So the buy-ins are very important. So I'll give you a story to support that. So I have been very big when it comes to becoming a morning person now. And it has not been the case ever since. I wanted to do it very bad, but couldn't really bring about this change in me. But when I finally started to think, and it came, I have to tell you this story, it came along with the help of three things coming together in my life at the same time. And why I'm telling this is because I want the listeners to know what I just talked about previously, that, sometimes it has to be inspired by people, right? So at this point in my life, when I shifted to India and there was so much turbulence happening, and three things came to me. One is Robin Sharma's 5 a.m. Club, the book. Then the second is Ankur Wariku's ebook that he shared once about his morning routine. And the third thing was that I was undergoing the law of attraction course. So all three came together very beautifully in my life, because I think there was this shift so needed. And I realized always the importance of getting up early and adding those number of hours, but just couldn't resolve to get to do it. So when I read this book, it gave me this morning 5 a.m. club book. It gave me the idea about disruption of the old patterns and habits, and then integrating the new ones very beautifully. And Ankur's post gave me the structure to my morning. And law of attraction, I started to manifest things. I learned the art of manifesting. So when all this came together, of course, I wanted to bring this shift, which was internal for me, but I needed the support of the family at that point in time. Because suddenly, when you say, okay, 5 to 8:30, I would not be available because this is my me time. You need to get the support because people are going to the school, somebody needs tea, this and that. So at that point in time, if you make your need very explicit to people, right? And tell them that this is what I want to do and I would need your support. I'm sure initially it might be a little uncomfortable for them, but the moment they begin to see that transformation in you, the small, small positive changes that you bring to their life, and ultimately, the first hand beneficiaries will be those people who are just right around you, right? And when they begin to see these changes, they start to support you because it is ultimately for good. So, what I would say here is that yes, you need that support of the immediate surroundings and the environment, because otherwise it will get very challenging and it will actually not help you follow the path of transformation that you want to follow so smoothly.
Yeah. I like the bit where you said, go and state it that this is something that I want to do and I need your support for it. And I've
Yeah.
always believed, although we say that we have come alone and we will go back alone, but we stay in an environment, and there's always a cause and effect. And it's wonderful, and also showcasing or that you are going to be the first beneficiaries if I transform for good. I think that's an awesome statement to make in the family. Uh,
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, just to finish that, Momita, the transformation that happened, I mean, the day I decided to take this step, from that day till this day, and again, I'm mentioning this for the listeners, that there is no going back. And that is what I call transformation, is that any change that you want to bring in your life has to be so thought through. Your purpose, my purpose behind this was so strong that I am adding these hours and this is what I have to do and this is what, and there is a structure to that. Once you go very methodically with the proper understanding of your own why, you can meticulously follow it through, and then there's no looking back, and then you stand transformed. It is like 3.5 hours to yourself, only for yourself. It means something. I mean, whoever I tell that, it's like, wow, this is, I feel so elated when I talk about it, because there's so much that I can do in all these hours.
That's magical.
Yeah.
I mean, it's magical that morning hours are magical, and I have been a part and parcel. Of course, I've still yet to transform into that, Preeti, but yes, it
Yeah.
does bring about a different level of energy and positivity. So coming
Sure.
back, and I was feeling tempted to call you the transformation queen at this point of time. So, what is your
Good.
what is your belief around transformation?
Hmm. So transform, if you look at the word, it is transform, which is beyond form, beyond your form,
Mhm.
right? I feel transformation happens, like I said, in two ways. Either it is, somebody else has inspired you, or it is what you are going through. So the belief is that you got to be following the three C's. Again, I'm taking three C's with your permission, Momita, that it is about the choices that you make, the consistency, and the creation. And let me explain what I mean by that. It is when I say choices, that so every moment for somebody who's transforming, you need to make a choice. Like getting up in the morning or just enjoying some more sleep is a choice we make to be consistent to what we want to become, right? So choice in every moment, consistency, as I said, every single day or whatever you have chosen it for multiple times, and it has to be consistent approach, right? To follow it through. And the third, as I said, is about creating, being so excited, and the whole excitement about creating the whole new you. So if these three are in place, which is, what choices to make, that you have to be consistent around those choices. And number three, be excited about creating the new version of yourself. So that is what is transformation. And my belief is that everybody who resorts and resolves to do it can do it, is able to do that. There's nothing like that I can't do it. I can give multiple examples of my own life that, I have changed my relationships 180 degrees, from having somebody to say that, okay, my son, when he was being very rebellious and all of that, Momita, I was so ready for him to go for his undergrad school, for him to go. From that place, I can very proudly say today that the best relationship that I have on the planet is with him. So if you kind of resolve to anything, if you are determined to make that changes, and ask the important question to yourself, why is this thing important for you? Answering that question to yourself, what is your why? Why do you? So for me, this relationship was very important. Having let him go would leave me always thinking that he would remember me as an angry mother. I will remember him as a rebel child. But that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to live on the moment by moment, thinking that I just adore the way he is, and he adores me the way I am. And to bring that, you had to get into that transformation mode, wear those shoes, put your boots on, pull up your socks, and be ready to crush your ego in the ground grinder and then bring that change. So it is transformation is something that you are very convinced within your being, within your inside, to make that change happen for you and be consistent with it.
Yeah, I mean, very, very powerful, especially thanks for clarifying because when I was thinking of this, launching this podcast, the entire intent was that transformation is not for different kind of people or for different people, or you have to really arrive and then you transform. That's not true. Each and everyone is capable. And you brought in very well, Preeti, the three C's, very, very simple, but choice, being consistent, and creating the excitement to create. So as we create this conversation, Preeti, and
Yeah.
maybe since we're coming to end also, and in terms of what would be your one piece of advice to our listeners?
So the same thing. If you allow me, and I can actually share a small thing that I mean, recalling from a book that I read. So we all are familiar with Stephen Covey, who wrote about, seven habits of effective families, people, and whatnot. So um, he said with his, this book is written by Stephen Covey and the daughter, Cynthia. And this book is called Living Life in a crescendo, whichever way you want to pronounce it. And what he talked about is that people who are fond of, so let me first explain what crescendo really means and why I'm bringing this up. So people who are really fond of concerts would know that music starts slow and at a low intensity in the beginning, and then gradually the intensity increases. And when it increases to the peak is when the music is very, very loud and it is at its best, right? So I want to continue, first of all, to live the rest of my life like a crescendo, with a crescendo mentality that is looking to the future and with the hope and optimism, believing that you can always grow, learn, and serve and contribute. And that's my message to the fellow listeners. It is that first, assess that importance of the change that you want to bring in your life, right? And then adapt a crescendo mentality, make your why very, very powerful. And then once you're committed to it, go with full understanding that the change is going to be hard in the beginning, but it will ultimately give you your gorgeous self in the end. And, you can then share this gift of your experiences and your wisdom with the rest of the world and serve the community and the people and the world at large. So, like, Pablo Picasso once very beautifully said that the meaning of life is to find your gift, but the purpose of life is to give it away.
Wow. Wow.
So,
I don't think I want to say anything right now. It's like that's so powerful, Preeti. And I think while my listeners, I'm not sure where they are at this point, for me to even listen to you and look at it and try to implement even 1% or 2% of this itself can be transformational. So, uh, Preeti, again, thanks a ton for sharing your experiences and being so candid and sharing such personal snippets of your family, as well as and I told you, the transformation queen that always open to some change. I think that itself is a spirit to celebrate, that whatever comes my way, I will go it. So more power to you. And thanks again
thank
for
you.
being my guest today.
Thank you so much, Momita, for inviting me again. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed having this lovely conversation with you.